want to introduce Sally Mahe, who's the Director of Organization Development with United Religions Initiative, an international interfaith organization that transforms religious tension into positive social change. Last year, in response to the various fears around September 11th, Sally co-created a URI toolkit, interfaith responses to hostility against faith communities. I think this is a wonderful resource to have, and there are other pieces of the toolkit available in the back table. It's just various things you can do or various actions you can take in response to interfaith solidarity, in response to hostility against faith communities. So I want to urge you to visit the back table sometime this evening and take a look at the various pieces of the toolkit that can give you some good ideas as how to respond. It's stated in the program, Sally is a happy grandmother. Now let me ask the grandparents in this room, is there such a thing as an unhappy grandparent? It doesn't exist. I think unhappy grandparent's like an oxymoron. I don't even know if you need to say happy grandparent. I read a really nice bumper sticker which said, why do grandparents and grandchildren get along so well? Because they both share a common enemy. Unfortunately, I happen to be the enemy in this situation, so I'm not happy about that. Without further ado, I introduce to the podium Ms. Sally Mahe.
I think this is the right height. Good. Well, to say I'm a happy grandmother, I'm getting happy.
What's happening?
But the mic isn't happy. Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. It is a real pleasure and a delight to be here, to be a part of this panel, and to be speaking to this gathering. I am happy, but I'm really happy to be here because it lets me return in a very small measure the really countless acts of thoughtfulness and significant cross-religion bridge building, which Iftikhar High, Wahid Siddiqui, and others from UMA have provided over the years to me personally, and also to my organization, the United Religions Initiative. We've had friendships that have just developed and evolved that has been a bedrock of our work and of our growing as human beings. I was also relieved in the notes to read that this evening was to focus on conversation about Islamophobia and that no one was expected to come to this challenging topic as an expert. I am no expert, but for my part, I want to take refuge in the words of Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, "Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places, close to home. So close and so small, they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet, they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he and she live in, the school or college he attends, the office where she works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, and equal dignity without discrimination." Muslims and non-Muslims are asking, how do we enter into this uncomfortable climate of fear and misinformation and prejudice? We may not like it, but for a time, Islamophobia, it seems, is here with us. I'm glad that I have read that professionals from different sectors, I've read from scholars, theologians, historians, pollsters, journalists, filmmakers, social scientists, people are staying up late. They're contributing good thoughts, perspectives, studying root causes, demographics, religious origins, impact of Islamophobia. We do need the best and the brightest to bring forward information and open up this conversation, this dialogue, and to teach us. But I want to focus the significance of our own personal experiences, what we think and what we do in small places close to home. A man named Marcus Braybrook, an early pioneer in interfaith work, said that when we speak of people's faith and enter into sharing practices together, we must remember to take off our shoes because we are entering holy ground. Likewise, I think this topic of Islamophobia, an irrational fear of Islam and Muslim people, and especially the questions, why do the people have this fear? How does it get stirred up? How can it be stopped? These need to be entered into with shoes off, not just as a subject for head and analysis, but a place that requires deeper levels of inner work, of true deeper learning, of openness, of forgiveness. I realize that this is why my story is valuable to this conversation. So I want to offer a few personal experiences. The first one I call profound ignorance. The event was, I believe, this one. The United Muslims of America, the year was 1997. Could have been another big Muslim event. I had just started doing interfaith work. Iftikhar High invited me and some other URI staff to attend this dinner. I found myself driving alone from Oakland down to Fremont. Other staff members couldn't attend. I was recently divorced, so I had no husband to accompany me. My memory is I was really afraid. I had stereotyped image, I don't know from where, in my head. Would I be welcome as a Christian? Would I feel uncomfortable being alone? Would it be dangerous? I am really embarrassed to admit now how stupidly ignorant I was then, but I simply didn't know any better. So of course, when I arrived, I was warmly greeted and graciously ushered to sit with a table of women. I found them to be delightful in every way and just like me. So I start with this personal anecdote because prejudice from ignorance is real. And I do know there are people in the grip of Islamophobia that are ignorant, as ignorant now as I was then. So colossal ignorance is dangerous, but it is curable. The second story I call The Choice. And the second story comes in 2001, a few months after 9/11. My daughter Lizzie, who had been teaching at St. Michael's, an international school in Kobe, Japan, called me to say she was considering converting to Islam. She said she had met women at the mosque nearby her home whom she admired. She found answers to deep questions about how she could live her life of faith. Of course, I was shocked. I was stunned. Her timing was terrible. I said, Lizzie, the U.S. is beginning to bomb Afghanistan. I tried to convince her to postpone her decision by saying she should think of conversion like a marriage. It's a core lifelong commitment and one that needs time, consideration. I suggested a year of engagement. Respectfully, she said, oh, thank you, Mom. Thank you for that advice. And 3 days later, she called me back and said, I converted. So shortly after that, we were together celebrating a special Christmas holiday together. We shared a hotel room. And when I awoke in the morning, there was Lizzie covered from head to toe in her prayer garment, kneeling on the floor near the side of the bed, praying. The reality shot through me. In an instant, I saw the young woman who was no longer the daughter I thought I knew. She was dressed in a garment that looked very strange to me. She had taken a path that I felt would separate her from me and from our family. Islam was coming under attack around the world. Would she be safe? I was afraid for her and for me. But at the same moment, I saw her serenity. And I had a choice in that split second. Without thinking, I bent over and I kissed her on the forehead. The choice happened. I still am not sure how. But I chose to accept her in that moment and all that would flow from it. And I offer this story because it shows how central private choices are. And perhaps our choices are not always as dramatic as this one. But when we are challenged with unknown things, with prejudice in our own psyches, within our own awareness, do we react with fear? Or do we choose to respond with trust? And when we hear stories of prejudice and hostility, do we choose to repeat those negative stories? Or do we choose to tell the positive stories of positive encounters? The third story is about my work with the United Religions Initiative. It's with how I was introduced. It's true, another staff member and I were inspired by the toolkit that CARE put out. CARE, as you all know, is Council for American Islamic Relations. But last year, they put out a toolkit for the Muslim community to help people respond to the fears stirred up last year by the minister who threatened to burn the Quran. So CARE's toolkit was for the Muslim community. So our toolkit was going to be for non-Muslim communities. So we focused on what we considered small acts for individuals and groups. Send a card or flowers with a message of support to a neighborhood mosque. Ask one's own religious leader to speak out against Islamophobia, especially during times when fears are stirred up. Organize conversations where people share positive encounters and stories of respect and friendship. So that toolkit has now been revised a little, and the cards that lead you to it are on the back table. So please feel free to pick up a card, and then you can also access the entire toolkit via our website. So I do think it's time now to reach out, and I do believe with many thousands of people around the world who are reaching out to meet the ugly and uncomfortable experiences, as you said, with positive actions that weave a stronger fabric of community. At this time, we want a lot of people to do a lot of things. We want political and religious leaders to speak out forcefully and consistently against acts of violence done in the name of any religion, and to denounce leaders who inflame religious intolerance. We want people to write blogs, to join community groups, to confront specific acts of bigotry and violence when they occur. We want people to use opportunities in their neighborhood to reach out and break through prejudice or ignorance just with a kind gesture. We want civil servants, teachers, police, policymakers, leaders of non-Islamic faith traditions to educate themselves about Islam and speak against Islamophobia. We want more citizens to mobilize media to educate audiences. We want media to present news responsibly. But I believe that confronting Islamophobia is ultimately not about getting others to do things. It is about each of us using the opportunities life presents to us to make personal choices. So as Eleanor Roosevelt said, the difference lies in whether or not in significant numbers, men and women in small places close to home choose to do their part. So thank you so much.